Welcome to a glorious day the Lord has made. Today, the story of a pastor who falls from grace, but then Jesus redeems him and his congregation.
Restoring hope, open my heart to sing, taking the darkness inside, revealing your light, restoring hope, open my eyes to see the world through different eyes, revealing your light, restoring hope.
Welcome. It's the 19th day of May in the Lord's year 2013. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and this is the Sunday edition of RestoringHopeLive.com. My co-host, Dr. Michael Hartwig, in the house. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Mac. How are you?
Good. This is going to be an interview that I'm going to lean highly on you because as an ordained pastor,
Sweet.
I think that you and Pastor Hafs can relate to each other very well. Also, Bob Montserrat, the cat in the hat, watching the chat. If for some reason you're watching this or listening to this program via the internet, then there is a chat available for you. Just go to RestoringHopeLive.com and flip on the chat, and then you can ask questions or make comments through that. Producing today, of course, is Eric David and Maddie Smith. Not Maddie Smith, sorry. Maddie, she's in our producer's booth today. All right, I want to introduce you to Pastor Brad Hafs, and his lovely wife Donna is here, and they have a ministry that's called Fresh Hope, and it is it's a nationwide nationwide ministry. Well, you also pastor in a church.
Yes.
Who'd they get to do the sermon this morning?
The youth pastor.
The youth pastor. Uh-oh. All right. So they're going to talk a little bit about what happened many years ago that is linked to mental illness. And I have a great aspiration for Pastor Hafs because I also have been diagnosed with a mental illness. It is not one that can be treated with any type of prescription drugs or anything like that. Mine is borderline personality disorder. And so I have great love for men and women who realize that there's something wrong with their wiring. And it can't be fixed by a pill. It can be fixed only by, well, I think it can only be fixed by God's will. But there's a lot of your will that you got to put into it to make it happen. So welcome, Pastor.
Thank you.
Welcome, Donna. Nice to see you. And Mike, I'll just kind of let you take it from here because this is an incredible story.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit about how you got here. Well, how did God call you into the ministry and all that kind of thing?
Oh, goodness. I probably knew from the earliest days of my life that I was called to be a pastor. And so I went to college and went to the seminary and was ordained and called to...
So who ordained you?
I was ordained in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod.
Ah, very good.
Yeah.
Okay. So you went, do you remember your first sermon?
Oh, yes.
What was it on?
The very first sermon as a
Donna's
student.
laughing here.
The very first student sermon or...
Donna, why are you laughing? Yeah. Tell us about it. What was it about?
I preached about, I don't even remember the text, but I used the I Love to Tell the Story song,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
And I said, do you really love to tell the story or do you just like to sing the song?
Sure.
Yeah, so anyway, I remember that.
So where did you meet Donna?
Oh, we met at St. John's College in Winfield, Kansas.
Oh, wow.
We were both students there.
Okay.
And she grew up in Los Angeles, and I grew up in a little town of Wisner, Nebraska. And so, you know, two opposite worlds.
Right. So you ended up being called into the ministry, you settled in a church in Nebraska. Is that right?
Yes, in Omaha.
And tell us a little bit about that church.
Well, that church was really a kind of, they called it a bell sheep congregation. It kind of led the way in the district and in the denomination. It was a growing church, kind of progressive as far as Missouri Synod churches went.
How big was it?
Well, at the time, there were something under 800 people in worship.
Wow.
And then I came as
that's
an
unusual,
associate.
though, isn't it? Oh, no, you came as an associate, though.
Unusual, for straight out of the seminary,
right.
Yeah, that would be unusual. But instead, the senior pastor that I was under about 3 years after that resigned, and I became the senior pastor at 29 years old.
Wow.
And
that's unusual.
very unusual. People were worried, that, gosh, he's too young. Of course, I was thinking to myself, I can do it. And
Right.
what I know about myself now, it was the beginning of lots of grandiose thinking
Right.
from an illness. But anyway, so I became the senior pastor, and within I don't even remember how many years, but within 7 years, we had gone from 800 to 3,000 in worship, or approximately 3,000 in worship.
Wow.
Had fought the city of Omaha to get to buy a manufacturing plant to move the church into. And at that point, if I recall things correctly, we were the 13th fastest growing church in North America, Protestant. And, we were really going. And
right.
and things were really happening. The first Sunday alone, I believe, in the new location, we had another 800 visitors or something like that. It was something. And all the while, the church was going so well. And by all outward appearance, I looked like, gosh, this guy knows what he's doing. My life was really out of control behind the scenes.
How does that look?
Well, I was doing all kinds of crazy things.
Like,
I had so much anger and irritability, and I found myself, my mind would race with thinking and thoughts. I would have more thoughts than I could even get out of my mouth. So I couldn't explain what I was trying to say. And I found myself just very impatient with everyone around me because they were thinking too slow. They couldn't move as fast as I could. And many times I felt kind of like I was sitting in my driveway in my car with a really hot car and a racing motor, and it went nowhere.
so do you yell at staff?
No.
Do you yell at your wife?
No. Yes. And my children, I did a lot of raging, but I managed it many times by driving around like a maniac, literally, late at night. I would get out of meetings and I just could barely tolerate to be in my own skin. And yet here I was functioning during
During the business
day.
hours.
Yes, there were relationship problems that had come up on the staff, but people they considered me to be very intuitive and very creative. And so they just, and then they would write it off to my age or whatever.
So, Donna, how did this stage in this whole thing play out? I mean, you were getting yelled and screamed at, and
Yeah, it was kind of hard at home for the kids and I. He was gone a lot because he was traveling and speaking at different places, so it would be quiet when he was gone, and then he would come home. And
was he a good speaker?
Yeah, he was a very good speaker. And I don't know if
It was.
he was. He still is. He's an excellent speaker. He wasn't so much yell, but he would be very intense, and he would, if he had something that was irritating him, he would talk to us for hours until he felt like we heard him.
So, like, how old were the kids at this point?
They were probably grade school. They were in grade school.
So they walk around pins and needles with the kids?
Sometimes.
Kids, yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
And other times.
Yeah, and other times he was a lot of fun.
So
you just never quite knew what Dad was going to be like when he got home.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's so much part of mental illness. My wife is listening right now going, boy, can I relate to that.
I'm thinking maybe my wife's thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, you're a nice guy.
Yeah, in front of you.
All right, we're coming back in a couple minutes after our first break. Joe Mintz is here with St. Gregory's. We're going to talk to you a little bit about alcohol and drug addiction. That isn't a part of this story, but we do want to remind you that part of Restoring Hope Live is reaching out to parents and to families who are struggling with a child or a spouse or a loved one who's hooked on drugs or alcohol, and it may be prescription drugs. There's an answer for that. Joe and I will talk about it here, and then we'll be back with Pastor Brad.
Restoring hope.
Addiction addiction treatment is all the same. Whether you're addicted to pornography or whether you're addicted to Miller beer, there's still addiction. And I've got Joe Meitz here from St. Gregory's. And if everything's an addiction treatment, then why are shows like this so important for St. Gregory to be around?
That's a really good question, because this format really talks about those issues that people are struggling with. What we're really dealing with when we talk about addictions treatment is really getting to those core fundamental issues that are really throwing confusion into people's lives about what's my purpose, how did I get here, what do I do from here? And that's really what we find leads to an addiction. That's a big point for us.
You know, I know that at the end of my addiction, when I was either going to choose to live or die, one of the questions that came out, because I did have a spiritual relationship with God at the time. I didn't know Jesus this well, but I kept saying, what's my purpose? Why am I here? I'm 40-something years old. I've had my kids. I've made money. My wife's okay. Why are you keeping me around?
That's what's really surprising for people as they go through the St. Gregory program, is what the program's really focused on isn't so much about putting Band-Aids on things and helping you find momentary, fleeting bits of happiness or pleasure. We're really breaking down what does it look like to obtain true happiness and true joy. We're really making an effort to help people heal completely from the inside out and help them to reach a higher goal as opposed to just being sober. We're not looking at sobriety as the end goal. We're looking at your life. We're really looking at the big things that you really want to accomplish, not to help not do.
Yeah, because if you're not sober, if you're alcoholic or addicted to drugs or depression medicine or anything like that, you really can't get to start.
That's right. You'll see someone come out of a recovery program when sobriety is their primary focus in life. That's the end game. And they get there and, well, nothing really comes from just sobriety, and they start thinking, is this it? Well, no. The whole point is that's not it. The point is, let's go and achieve things with the rest of your life. Let's really be involved and engaged in those things that really are going to bring you happiness and joy. And that's a very different approach. We really want to make sure that people are grasping this idea that life is very big, and it can be very big for them. And they've come to this point where all they understand is this little world of being caught in the cycle of addiction and dependencies. We're helping to break that, not just for the sake of breaking addiction and dependencies, but so they can go on and live out their life with purpose and meaning.
Yeah, I hear so many people talk about after they get sober and after the desire to drink or drug or whatever is lifted from them, then they realize how messed up their life is.
That's exactly right.
They've been swallowing it and burying it, and they can't feel the pain. And when they begin to feel the pain, that's when somebody like St. Gregory's can come in and, literally one hand at a time, pull them out of that dark hole.
That's right. What St. Gregory Retreat Center does, we're going to start from the beginning. We're going to really get a full understanding of what's truly going on here. And by that, I'm not talking about, well, you drink too much or you're using drugs. The real problem is what is the emotional turmoil that's really causing you to respond to life in an unhealthy way? How do we help you to challenge those beliefs that you may have about yourself in a way that helps you not to just move on with life and not be reactive to things, but truly understand the real logic behind why are you believing what you're believing? How are you really pursuing a life of joy and happiness?
All right. How do we get a hold of St. Gregory's?
You can get a hold of St. Gregory's at 888-778-5833. Our counselors are always available. That's 888-778-5833. The website is stgregoryctr.com. And you can just do a Google search for St. Gregory Retreat Center, and that'll come right up.
Restoring hope, open my heart to sing, taking the darkness inside, revealing your light, restoring hope, open my eyes to see the world through different eyes, revealing your light, restoring hope.
20 minutes after the hour on the 19th day of May in the Lord's year 2013. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and this is Restoring Hope Live. You're either listening to this on XM, channel 131, the Christian Family Values channel, or you might be listening or watching this on the web at restoringhopelive.com. Either way, we sure appreciate you being here and spending your time with us on Sunday. We know there's lots of choices, and you spending time with us, we appreciate. We pray before every show that His words will be coming through our mouths. We believe this is a ministry driven by God. There's no ego in this room. Well, Bob Montserrat's kind of we're here as a ministry to serve the Lord and to help people come in and tell their stories. And we believe, this is my belief, that within your story is your DNA with God. And there is something particular about your story that no one else has. And yet God wants you to share that with somebody else, because somebody else needs to hear that story, and they need that piece of your journey so they can move forward. And so this show is nothing more than a transference of God's will from one to another. And I believe if God dances and He claps His hands and He laughs out loud, I believe He does that when this show's on, because all these people, you are getting a chance to hear Brad and Donna's story, and it's life-changing for them, and it can be life-changing for you. All right. By the way, I'll just give you an update. Next Sunday, even though it will be Memorial Day, we're going to have a couple in here who are both dying from cancer. And they have struggled with it for a very long time, and why hope is the only thing they need.
Within weeks, they were diagnosed. Together within weeks. He went in, she went in, weeks apart, and now they're going through chemo together. Hold hands during chemo.
In a way, it's a love story.
It's a tremendous love story.
But that'll be on Memorial Weekend.
We've got a love story here too.
Yeah, we do. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, so I understand, Brad. You let me just recap the story. Basically, what's happening is you're in this church, young guy. Things are going really, really well. Church grows from 800 to 3,000.
Approximately, yes.
And you're in these high-power meetings, intense. You're finding relief by getting in your car after business meetings, driving around town.
Yep.
Don, I want to turn to you. He shows a different side at home. Is that right?
Yes.
And does he take it out on you and the kids?
At times, I think our son probably took the brunt of it, sure. And just his need to be understood.
Right.
He was trying to explain himself,
right.
But it would take a long time until he felt like we understood what was happening with him.
Did you feel like you were living with two different people in Brad?
Yes, at times. There was two different personalities that would be around.
Let me ask you this. Did you ever come to the point where you said, I think this is not going to end well. I think I'm going to have to walk away?
I never thought that. I knew there was something wrong with him. I knew that he needed help. And about a year before he crashed and burned, I had gone to some of the other people at his congregation, the other pastors, and asked if they would help to get him help. He needed help. And nobody really did anything about it.
What was the trigger point?
For me, the trigger point to do that was his behavior was getting more and more erratic.
Meaning?
Crazy.
Like
being out driving around, he'd turn his headlights off and stick his foot out the door and drive 80 miles an hour. He would just be very irritable for no reason.
Well, now, when I was first getting started in the ministry, I had a Pinto. So driving with my foot out the window probably
wouldn't have done any good.
Yeah, wouldn't have done
Yeah.
It was already out, right?
Yeah, right. There was a good chance it was hanging out the door anyway.
Yeah.
But I did things like I would decide we needed to move to a new house.
So you just...
And I would just kind of demand, I would just hound her until she said it was like an 18-wheeler truck coming at her. Yeah. And she would just give in, and we'd look at one house, we'd move, sell that other house, and I did this with cars.
Pianos.
I bought a baby grand piano for myself one day at a store. It was only $800, but I bought myself a birthday present. Didn't call her, didn't anything.
And you didn't play the piano?
Oh no, I played.
Oh, you played piano.
I'm a very creative, artsy person,
okay.
And so, but she just never knew. And sometimes I was, usually if I was in a party, I was the life of the party, laughed the loudest, talked the loudest, knew the best stories.
Sure.
And then would come home and just be angry and irritable or retreat.
My wife would say that every day when she came home from work, when her hand would hit the doorknob to come in from the garage inside, she'd take a big deep breath because she didn't know what Mac she was going to face.
Yes.
Right.
That relate to you?
Yes, I relate to that.
And I would go away. I thought I was a workaholic.
Yeah.
My father had been diagnosed with manic depression, and but I thought I had never had a down day in my life.
So manic depression meaning that he's depressed.
Bipolar. But he was more on the depressed side of.
Okay, so explain to me your understanding of bipolar. What does it mean?
Bipolar is really, there's different kinds of bipolar.
Okay.
There's not just one kind. But bipolar disorder is when your brain chemistry does not work properly and the impulse center of your brain kind of dislodges, if you will. That's layman's terms. And
impulse meaning you
can't control impulses. In fact, you take risky behaviors. You believe that no consequences. I mean, I met people that jumped off bridges because they thought they could fly. Things that just are grandiose, bigger than life. I told people in our support group recently that I used to walk on an airplane, and it wasn't arrogance. It was sheer, unadulterated, grandiose thinking, I've got to be one of the smartest people on this airplane. And I mean, I think about that now, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Right.
But I would go away to a hotel, lock myself up for 5 to 7 days, work and plan out an entire year's worth of preaching, all the sermons, everything, come out with just a truckload of work done.
Right.
Come home, dump it on the staff, so to speak, and then go home and sleep a couple of days. And I never slept usually during that, or I'd have a few hours of sleep. So I'd have these big bursts of energy and creativity,
right.
and then I'd retreat. Or I'd have the big burst of energy and creativity and then be really crabby and irritable. And
so you're saying bipolar that's one of the way it fleshes itself out is that you get really intense, workaholic, those kind of things, and then the next thing you just crash and burn.
Many times
without alcohol, though, without drugs.
No, I didn't use any drugs to manage my mood. I used a lot of shame and guilt on myself.
Ah, wow.
And I've had a couple of psychiatrists tell me that it was probably only because of my faith and my really strong boundaries that I would flirt with problems or flirt with behaviors that could have just really done me in.
Right.
And I would walk right up to the edge of it, but I would never step over the edge. And one of the issues for myself was that then I would shame myself, and that would bring my mood down. I would be really hard on myself, and it was a way of managing it. Truly, on the inside, I wanted out of all the stress at the church. Everybody loved what was going on. And when I was there, I was really into it. I was addicted to it. It was my idol.
Right.
I loved it more than I loved the Lord. It was how I found my self-worth. It was all these things. And then the reality is that because of what happened with Donna's mom, I knew that wasn't an out for me.
Oh, what happened to Donna's mom?
My mom was also bipolar, not diagnosed till much older in life, and she committed suicide.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
So you saw these similarities in him.
Yes and no. My mom was more on the depressed side of it, but she would have her high sides like during the holidays, and then she would be very depressed afterwards. So
she was most likely bipolar 2, which is, there's a lot of people that die from suicide that are misdiagnosed. They're actually bipolar 2. They're cycling in a low mood. They have low lows, higher lows, if you will.
Sure.
But it's bipolar. And without a mood stabilizer, antidepressants don't work.
We're talking with Pastor Brad Hayes and his wife, Donna, and a difficult time they went through in his ministry. But as always, Jesus reaches in and turns lemons into lemonade. The ministry called Fresh Hope, how it impacted them, how it impacts them and the people around them, and how it could impact you. That's coming up next, live here on RestoringHopeLive.com, powered by WebcastOneLive.com.
Restoring hope.
This moment of uncontrollable laughter was made possible by a 32-year-old man with little to no coordination attempting to execute a simple cartwheel. His name is Sergeant Warner, but young James, our laughing friend here, simply calls him Dad. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
So, Jacqueline.
Yes, Mom?
I wanted to talk to you about something and... Oh, wait. Hold on. I just got a text. Oh, there's another one. Wow. Busy me. So, anyway...
Oh, wait, Mom. I just got a message. My friends keep commenting on my comment. Oh, there's another one. So many comments on my comment.
Oh, I can't wait to watch TV tonight. Playoffs!
Hey, guys, check out my new video game. Pew, pew. Wait, Mom, what?
What? Hold
What'd you say? Wait a second, what?
This weekend, unplug. Take your family to the forest. There's nothing in the world like experiencing nature firsthand. Trees, paths, bluebirds, streams. Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family. To find the forest nearest you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
So, I'm a dog, and I'm kind of new to this family, but I've noticed a trend. My humans do this thing where they go around and get all my toys and hide them in this basket, but it's always the same basket, and it's always the same place. And then they act so surprised when I find them, but I'm like, hello? That's where you put it last time. Humans are the worst at hide and go seek.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
The traditional light bulb, a groundbreaking invention in 1879. It's time we switch to longer-lasting Energy Star light bulbs. They're more efficient than the old bulbs, like a text message is more efficient than a carrier pigeon. And they cut down on our energy costs. Because in our own groundbreaking age, we deserve a light bulb that saves us some cash. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ad Council.
Today in school, I learned a lot. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me. In English, I learned that I'm disgusting. And in physics, I learned that I'm a loser.
Today in school,
in math,
I learned that I'm ugly and useless.
Trash.
And in gym,
in biology,
I learned that I'm pathetic
that I'm fat
and a joke.
And stupid.
In history,
today
I learned that I'm trash.
Today in school, I learned that I have no friends.
In biology,
in English, I learned that I make people sick.
And
at lunch, I learned that I sit on my own because I smell.
And
in chemistry, I learned that no one likes
me. In biology, I learned that I'm fat and stupid.
In English,
and in math,
that I make people sick.
I learned that I'm trash.
The only thing I didn't learn in school today?
The only thing I didn't learn today?
The only thing I didn't learn?
Is why no one ever helps.
Kids witness bullying every day. They want to help, but they don't know how. Teach them how to stop bullying and be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov. A message from the Ad Council.
Make sure your child is up with the alarm and ready for school each morning, because missing just 18 days, even in middle school, will put their graduation at risk. It's up to you. Learn more at boostup.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
Restoring hope. Open my heart to sing. Taking the darkness inside. Revealing your light. Restoring hope. Open my eyes to see. See the world through different eyes. Revealing your light. Restoring hope.
Welcome back. It is the 19th day of May in the Lord's year 2013. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and this is the Sunday edition of RestoringHopeLive.com. I thank you for listening. I love this job, and I couldn't do it without you. So we appreciate you being here, either live on XM Sirius in Columbus, Ohio, with our friends down in Arizona and Pittsburgh, or perhaps you're online. You're online at webcast1live.com or restoringhopelive.com. We appreciate you taking the time to do that. My co-host is Dr. Michael Hartwig. And why did you choose not to have... Why aren't you Pastor Dr. Mike Hartwig?
It just gets too long.
Well, then why not Pastor Mike Hartwig? Why Dr. Michael Hartwig?
I don't know. More credibility, I guess. I don't know.
Oh,
PhD has a little more credibility
than Pastor.
Reverend.
Really?
Yeah, you have to work a lot harder.
Oh, yeah.
And you got a bigger bill there, too.
So, Pastor Dr. Michael Hartwig.
Just Bishop is fine.
Bishop is fine.
Yeah, right.
Who is the co-host on this show, and we want to remind you that Father's Day is going to be a great show as he's going to tell his story. And Mike and I are unique in our stories that we found each other in our lives because we both come from the similar backgrounds. And so on the 9th, Father's Day, we'll have Mike tell his story of restoring hope in his life. Today, Pastor Brad Hayes and his wife Donna is here. They have a ministry called Fresh Hope, which is available to you, and we'll talk about how you can get involved with that as we move this program along. But Pastor Michael Hartwig is
Holy
conducting
Reverend
this interview.
Father.
Yeah, right. That and $1.50 will get me a cup of coffee, and $4 to get me a gallon of gas.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're involved in a big ministry. Things are going really well. 3,000 member church. You're preaching to crowds all over around the country, and it all comes to a head. Tell us about that.
Yes. One of my things that I used to do when I was managing my mood is I would drive around on these country roads out by a lake. And they were gravel roads, and I liked those best because that was the highest risk. And I would drive sometimes 60, 70, try to get up to 80 miles an hour, open the car door, stick my foot out. Sometimes I would turn the car lights off. I always did this at night. I would drive sometimes till 2 or 3 in the morning, would end up in cities that, 2 hours away and think, oh my gosh, how'd I end up doing that? Right. And usually I was listening to the radio, talking out loud, I was out of my right mind. And
the thrill was what was cool. I mean, that's what drove you.
Yes,
You just liked the thrill.
Well, yeah, because it shot a lot. It would wear you out then. It was like a high.
So when you opened the door, did you try to surf on the gravel?
Oh, yeah. I would try to, yeah.
Oh, man, I can imagine what your shoes look like.
Oh, yeah. And I would listen to talk radio, and if there was a murder, if I heard about it on the radio, I would drive by. And I would go to places where it wasn't safe to be, Did
you go to bars or anything?
Nope. I might drive by a bar, but I'd never go in.
Right.
There was a boundary line I wouldn't cross.
Okay, so you're driving around, surfing, gravel surfing.
What I recall is that night, it was May 13th, Monday night, May 13th, 18 years ago, that I needed to go to the bathroom. I had been drinking a bunch of caffeine, a bunch of pop, and I stopped, and at this outdoor, I guess you'd call it a outhouse. There were no lights or anything. I was aware of that place because I'd driven out that way a lot. And I walked up to urinate, and there was someone in the doorway of the restroom in the dark. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just go around, or I'll just go on the outside facing the outhouse. And then I went back to my car, and as I went back to my car, somebody grabbed me from behind or touched me, and then he showed me a badge, and he said, I'm an Omaha undercover police officer. And he said I was masturbating for 30 seconds. And I don't believe that I did that. I don't believe that that was the case. That would not be anything that I would ever do or want to do. So
he accused you of masturbating, and you're saying, no, I was urinating.
Oh, I was so shocked, and he had me get in his truck, and I couldn't talk. I was just dumbfounded. Now, I didn't know that he was saying it was for 30 seconds and all this until later. What happened then was I told one of my pastors, and one of the elders came over to our house, and they said, okay, we're going to handle this quietly, privately. This is because it would be just a misdemeanor ticket, and it was $50 fine. If it was $75, it would get put in the paper, and hopefully blah, 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 blah. And then that was the time when they both recognized what my wife had said, there is something wrong, because I knew that isn't who I am, but I could not. Why would I be accused of that? But I shouldn't have been where I was.
Right.
And that was a key to me. When I tried to remember it, it was like watching a videotape that was made years ago with no lights.
Right.
So we had to go through this process of me going to court, and it was like traffic fine court. There's no jury or anything like that, because the denomination said that if I pleaded no contest, that was the same as being guilty. And so I had to clear my name, or I couldn't be on the roster, yada, yada, yada. So that happened in May, and I didn't go to court until August of that year. We were in the newspaper. It was all over in the press, on TV. And it was a continuing story because whoever was leaking it, and it was probably coming from the policeman or someone, was leaking it. And along the way, they'd give little tidbits just to keep it in the news. And by August, then we went, and I was found guilty. And later, I won an appeal months later. That didn't matter because I won an appeal, but the two undercover officers had both contradicted each other as to something very pertinent in the process.
What were they being undercover for there? I mean, why were
that
they
was a known place, I guess, where guys
things
went,
are happening. Okay.
And I knew that any place like that would be dangerous. That was part of the
thrill.
And so anyway.
So that place was a homosexual hangout? Is that what you're saying?
I guess, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rendezvous point. And so they were being undercover, and they assumed that you were part of that.
Well, yeah. And like my therapist said when I went right away, he said, well, sometimes you see what you're looking for, and sometimes you see what you're not looking,
But God used that, though, didn't he, to kind of help you?
You know what?
Along
in all of this, I know this, that God intervened in my life that night.
Right.
I hated it. But I had been pleading to him and crying out to him when I was doing the crazy driving and saying, God, help me, help me. And he did. But he didn't do it at all like I wanted him to do it.
So I'm assuming that he helped you by taking your church away.
Yep. The idol got torn out of my hands. He pried my fingers off of it.
Wow.
And, I believe that those in that church did the best they could with the information they had. We'd all do different things now. But the wonderful thing is I'm reconciled with those friends, and even our churches are in the process of doing some public reconciling. And
so the court case, let's go back and talk a little bit about that court case. So they bring that accusation against you. What effect did that have on the church? Did people start leaving the church, going to other places?
No.
They hung there with you.
Yeah. And then privately, they had asked me to resign immediately. And my counselor had counseled me to say, not until I can get some help. Let me get help. It had been 3 months, and I had gone nowhere other than a therapist, and I needed to go somewhere. He knew it.
Meaning extended care facility.
I needed to be hospitalized or something.
But at this point, nobody had diagnosed you with any kind of mental disorder or anything?
No.
Wow.
And it wasn't even a thought of anyone in the church. I think they just thought there was something wrong and nobody knew. And so what happened then, I went to a hospital in Michigan for 3 weeks, outpatient.
Wow.
And while I was there, I was diagnosed as bipolar. I asked the psychiatrist why she didn't tell me the first time when I was in for the first appointment. And she said, because you didn't shut up long enough for me to tell you.
Pastor Brad Hayes and his wife Donna is here today. We're going to come back with our last segment and tell you how God came in the middle of this and helped them create a ministry called Fresh Hope. And it is a ministry that you too can take advantage of, no matter where you live. We'll tell you that here in just a minute. You know, Restoring Hope Live is based on life's habits, hurts, and hang-ups. And even though there is no drug or alcohol abuse in Pastor Brad's story, it exists among us. Here's Joe Meintz from St. Gregory and I talking a little bit about what alcohol and drugs do to people and how you can get help for a loved one. J. Michael McCoy here with Restoring Hope, and I've got my friend Joe Meintz in from St. Gregory's Retreat Centers. And, you know, no matter what the issue that we speak of with Restoring Hope, it all comes down to hurts, habits, and hang-ups. Now, maybe those habits turn into addictions. Maybe those hang-ups turn into depression or heavy resentments. And maybe what you've done is you've thought, well, I'm okay. I don't drink too much alcohol. I don't smoke dope and do meth. But I've got some antidepressants that I get from the doctor, and I had that back injury, you know, from a year or so ago, that old football injury, guys, right? Wink, wink. So you take some painkillers, and before you know it, your life's out of control. And I know you don't want to admit that. I'm okay. I've been there too. But at some point, things happen, and people notice. And you're in the grips of prescription medicine addiction. And you think, well, the doctor's given it to me. It's got to be okay. It's not. And one of the people that can help you release from that grip is St. Gregory's. How crucial is it that people understand what they're doing with prescription drugs nowadays?
I'll tell you, it's an incredible epidemic, and it's really at the forefront of what we see in the addiction treatment world, really. There's so many times where people are trying to figure out, well, are these narcotic painkillers good or bad altogether? Are these anxiety relievers good or bad altogether? And what we're really finding is those drugs serve a purpose. When you've had an injury and you're taking those painkillers, everyone knows, I think, that can be a real godsend when there's extreme pain. The difficulty is exactly what you had mentioned. When there's some other hurts, habits, or hang-ups in your life, then all of a sudden those painkillers start filling a need other than just the physical pain. Yep. When they start replacing some of the difficulty in dealing with your emotional traumas with a pill, as well as the physical relief, now we have a real twofold issue. We've got physical issues as well as mental and emotional issues that pill is really helping you with. And that's how we see so many people come into this trap of prescription drug addiction. Now, a lot of times we have a lot of trouble with people who fall into the grips of a prescription drug addiction because it doesn't seem like the same type of a thing that we'd normally speak of when we talk about addiction. And they're a lot of times reluctant to seek out help because they think, well, I'm not a cocaine user or I'm not at the bar every day, but they know that they've got difficulties in coming off of these medications and they're affecting a lot of different dynamics in their lives. And that's something that St. Gregory's really prides ourselves on. When somebody comes into our program for help, we first of all really make sure that we're helping you to become well enough to recover wholly. We're really trying to help you understand why are you behaving and what's really causing those emotional difficulties, and then teaching you the tools and skills to overcome those barriers that are keeping you from being the person you were created to be. We disagree with the idea that God created you to be an addict. We're really getting down to the barrel here of understanding what does it look like for you to honestly evaluate what are your gifts, what are your talents, where is your value? And when we understand what those are, now we can start lining up what types of activities, what kind of life engagement are you looking at that's really going to provide that happiness for you. And that's how we intend to help people recover. And let's help to restore you from the bottom up, and you're able to obtain happiness and joy from other areas of your life.
I've met them. They're honest to goodness human counselors that understand where you're coming from. They understand your hurt, your habit, and your hang up, and they're going to help you, and they're going to help you with the love of Jesus Christ. That's the most important thing. All right, the number again, 1-888-778-5833. That's 888-778-5833. The website is stgregoryctr.com.
Restoring hope. To sing, taking the darkness inside, revealing your light, restoring hope. Open my eyes to see the world through different eyes, revealing your light, restoring hope.
10 minutes minutes before the top of the hour on this, the 19th day of May in the Lord's year 2013. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and this is RestoringHopeLive.com. Dr. Pastor Bishop Michael Hartwig is my co-host. Bob Montserrat, the cat in the hat, watching the chat. And, of course, Eric and Maddie producing today. And I just got a lovely email from my wife that said I misspoke. I'm sorry. June 16th is Father's Day. And so that's the day that Dr. Mike is going to share his story with us. I apologize. I said the 9th, and she immediately corrected it. And
what would we do without our wives?
What
would we do without our wives?
I don't ever want to think about it.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to think about it. I am a product of love at first sight. The moment I saw my wife for the first time, I knew. I went and told my partner on the radio the next morning that I'm going to marry that woman.
Yeah.
And I believe when I get to heaven, God will tell me that she's an angel, and He sent her here just to take care of my sad
blessed.
behind.
You really are.
I am. So are you.
And so is Brad because of Donna. Yeah.
So you've had this eruption in your life. You've lost your church. But the good news is you haven't lost your faith. You have finally been properly diagnosed, and then you create this incredible ministry to help other people like this.
Yeah.
Tell us about Fresh Start.
Yeah.
Fresh Hope.
Yeah. Sorry, Fresh Start is.
Well, I relapsed 7 years after. It had to do with messing up my medicines, and I thought if I didn't take one, I overtook one night, so I thought I wouldn't take it the next day. And when I relapsed and was in the hospital again, I realized that I did not know enough. So I attended a few support groups around the city after that, and I came out of it more depressed, more suicidal, more hopeless than I even went into it, because I wanted to learn how to not just survive or just cope, but I needed to function. I needed to be able to work. I wanted to have a life. And I kept complaining about it to my doctor, and my psychiatrist is a Christian, and he said, well, then start something. Start something that is what you need. If it's not there, start it. So I started Googling, trying to find materials to start a Christian support group for people with mood disorders or mental health issues, and there was nothing. I mean, I looked for 2-3 years, and I had enough time on my hands that I could look. And in the process, then he said, I'll help you if you'll just but start it.
Why do you think there isn't that much support for
I don't know.
In the Christian community?
In the Christian church at large, still today you can Google, and you don't find. There may be a group here or there, but I find that churches are more likely to allow one of the secular groups to use their, I don't know. I think a lot of churches don't know what to do with mental illness. Somehow we've turned the brain into something spiritual, and it's not.
Right.
It's no different than your heart not working or your liver not working.
Right.
And your mind is what your brain does. Your brain is an organ just like everything else. Right. And if it doesn't function right, you're not going to think right. You're not going to act right.
I do just want to add that Celebrate Recovery, which is in many churches across the country, they do deal with mental health issues.
Right.
They have areas for that, and they also have what they call Celebrate Recovery for pastors. So pastors who need help can come in also.
So what is just Fresh
Hope? What I found is that I needed, because I didn't have a dual diagnosis, and a lot of the recovery things.
Dual diagnosis meaning?
Meaning a drug addiction and a co-occurring mental health issue at the same time. And so a lot of the steps with recovery programs like Celebrate Recovery or even AA those did not meet my needs. Right. And at least those around us. And so the doctor and I started working on what I had discovered during my own recovery from a spiritual perspective. People can see those tenets at freshhope.us.
So Fresh Hope is if I signed up for Fresh Hope, what is that going to look like for me?
Well, Fresh Hope is really two things. It's a wellness approach to mental health from a Christian perspective that says, I can live a full and rich life in spite of having this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's geared for both those who have a disorder or a diagnosis and those who are loved ones. And so we started one group. Now there's a number of groups in the metro area in Omaha, Nebraska, but now we have groups in other states.
So
we have groups starting that are springing up.
So a group would meet on Thursday night, 7 to 9.
Every week.
And what do? We sit around and...
well, you first come and we read the tenets together and have a prayer, and everybody does a little how they're doing. And then we have a topic or something that we're going to chew on as a large group. And then then the second half, people break up into their small groups.
Okay, so how do I know I'm a market for this? This is something I could
Well,
use.
if you have a mental health diagnosis...
But what if I don't?
Even if you think that there's something,
okay.
If you struggle with depression or whatever,
And
you don't
what are
have
some
to have a
sign-
diagnosis.
What are some signs of it?
Oh, for depression?
Well, it could be
Or-
depression, but it sounds like risky behavior is another thing.
Well, yes, risky behavior. We've got one guy that has come and said, I'm obsessive compulsive, and I know there's something wrong with me, with my thinking.
Boy, that's a big term, obsessive compulsive. What does that mean?
Well, the turning off and on the light switches and washing your hands.
So he'll just
it could be
stand there.
a whole bunch of things, but...
Okay, so that's it. Risky behavior, like I'm
We
being
do.
crazy.
We have people with personality disorders. We have people with multiple personalities, or DID it's called now. And we have people with schizoaffective disorder. And what we do is the whole approach is positive, hope-filled, because if people get stuck in the medical model alone, when you have to go to the hospital and you have a mental health issue, if you stay in that model, it does, you can learn helplessness very quickly.
Right.
And so this is about living.
So
This
it's
is
not
about-
it's not just for the person involved in it. It's also for the spouses and for the kids and things
Absolutely.
like that. Yeah.
And the family.
Wow.
And so
how do we do this? How do
they can contact us at freshhope.us if somebody'd like to start a group in their church or in their community, as well as then I wrote a book called Fresh Hope, Living Well in Spite of a Mental Health Diagnosis, that can be bought on Amazon, or if they go to freshhopebook.com, they can order it that way. And it works through, it's a workbook that works through the tenets of Fresh Hope and could be used to start a group, or it could be a small group that meets on a regular basis.
Pastor Brad and Donna, thank you very much for being here today. I appreciate you sharing your story. I'm convinced, I know that there was somebody out there today that God put in front of the radio just because you were here and you helped them. You maybe changed their lives.
I believe that too.
We hear stories back from people all the time who have listened to this show, and they tell us what a difference it makes. Sometime, let me tell you, Mike, the story about the young man that was going to take his own life.
Right.
And he listened to a show that we did here of the spouse of a man who had just committed suicide. And in the last segment on that show, I just left her in the room by herself, and I said, you just talk to your ex-husband and tell him what he did to your family. And after that, this kid called me and said, I was going to commit suicide, take my life, families, leave them behind. He said, I can't do it now.
Absolutely.
So programs like this do change lives.
The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him, to the one who seeks him. And thanks for giving us some hope.
Thank you. There's no reason to live in a hopeless world because of mental health issues.
Until
God
we
is
meet
good.
again, make sure you do just one thing, please. That's pray.